Hi friends, I'm Jess, and welcome to the Hexed Library, where I post reading, writing, book, and planner related content a couple of times a week. Today is going to be my bingo board from hell wrap up for the month of May. I am definitely behind, slowly trying to catch up. If you are new here, the bingo board from hell is a idea that was brought to fruition by our friend Leanne at Literary Diversions, and she created this bingo board for us. She has her own version, but she also posted a blank version where we could make our own. I have done so with some requirements for things that I've wanted to get for this year. So we are going to do a wrap up while also going over what worked for the bingo board. Now, some things did not cover anything on the bingo board, so we'll go over those first, and then we'll hop into things that did cover other things. So let's start with some stats. First, I read 9 books in the month of May. I had 1 DNF. I read 2,949 pages, and my average rating was a 4 out of 5 stars, which is fantastic, honestly. Second month in a row at a 4-star. My books that did not go on the bingo board from hell, first was Some Girls Bite by Chloe Neal. This is the first book in the Chicagoland Vampire series. This book follows our main character, who I believe her name is Merritt, and at the beginning of this book she is turned into a vampire. In this world there are like vampire clans. They are like separated out throughout the cities, and you have to typically have permission to turn someone into a vampire, because they then become like part of your clan. There's rules, regulations, all of those fun things. Merritt is mad that she was changed because she didn't want to be changed, but it was like a last minute thing where there was a serial killer at the school who was killing people, and the head of one of the houses found Merritt, and prior to her actually dying, he then changed her into a vampire to save her life. Of course, he's like the alpha of this hive of vampires, and naturally, sparks fly. Duh. She's given a job within, I know they're not actually called hives. I don't know what they're called. I've read too many vampire books this month. I've watched too much werewolf and vampire shorts. I can't remember what things are called anymore. Anyway, I gave this a 3.25 out of 5 stars. And you would think that that would mean that I didn't enjoy it, but honestly, I really enjoyed it, and I bought the next 6 books in the series. I bought the first 7 books in the series because I have this one here too as well, secondhand. So 3.25 sounds really low, but you know, I was just vibing, just having a good time. So the other book that does not fit on the bingo board is Hounded by Kevin Hearn. This is the first book in the Iron Druid Chronicles. So this book follows our main character, whose name is Atticus O'Sullivan. He is a druid. He's like one of the last of the druids. He is a couple thousand years old, and this book also has like witches and werewolves and vampires in it. So you know it's got like all of my favorite things. The series actually came out, I think, starting in like the early, like late 2000s, early 2010s. And this actually is like a best-selling series that I have no idea how I'd never heard of it before. But I hadn't when I seen it at the Barnes & Noble, I think is where I picked this up. But basically he is trying to fight his enemy, Angus Og, and I'll read to you the synopsis, which is where I decided that I was 100% going to read this. Atticus O'Sullivan is the last of the ancient druids. He has been on the run for more than 2,000 years, and he's tired of it. The Irish gods who want to kill him are after an enchanted sword he stole from a first-century battle, and when they find him managing an occult bookshop in Tempe, Arizona, Atticus doesn't want to uproot his life again. He just wants everything to end one way or another, but preferably the way in which he can continue to enjoy fish and chips. He does have some small hope of survival. The Morrigan, the Irish chooser of the slain, is on his side, and so is Bridget, first among the Fae. His lawyer is literally a blood-sucking vampire, and he has a loyal Irish wolfhound with opinions about poodles. When I tell you that he's like up against a coven of witches and the police and Angus Og and the poodles, this book was so good. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a great time. I really enjoyed it. I plan to continue on in this series. Now we're going to talk about books that are actually on the bingo board from hell. Uppermost square is 12 books by 12 friends. I did read a book this month from that, and that would be Magic Bites by Alana Andrews. I DNF'd this book at 50% so that I could count it for the readathon that I was doing. I did not like it. I felt like, and I have discussed this multiple times since then, just typically when I've been in live shows, because that's pretty much the only place I've been since then, but it felt like it was almost like in another language. The way that the sentence structure was and the way everything was put together and the way that the info dumping was happening, I really felt like I didn't have any sense of what was going on in the story. I have like a vague recollection of what was happening. Our main character has some sort of a power. I don't know what she is, but I know that there are like shapeshifters of different kinds as well. And her mentor is killed, and it's like she sets herself up to like take his job, but also figure out who killed him and why. And I just really, when I went from reading this book to the next book I started reading, I felt like I was reading a book in a different language. It really was just like that much of a difference. So not a fan. This is one that was recommended to me that was recommended by Lynn. It was also recommended by Julie and some other people during a live stream where we were talking about my obsession with the werewolf and vampire shorts. And I was like, find me books that have, that have this vibe. And they were like, read this series by Alana Andrews. And just didn't work for me. So, but it does still come off of the square. So that puts our square at 2 out of 12 for the year. The next book in the middle is to have our physical unread TBR shelf under 60 books, with the caveat that all the books in the series only count as one book, because I can't read books 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 if I haven't read book 1 yet. So to give myself a nice variety, I would like to have 60 things I can choose from. I, again, was under that for May. I think in the last video I said I was at like 33. It's definitely not that low. It's closer to like 43 or 42, somewhere around about in there. I will give you an accurate total in the next video, which should be my next haul video. There will be the accurate number in there. It's under, so that gets to be at 5. I know we're at 5 because I've been under it every month this year. May is 5 months in. The next square is 2024 new releases, and I have a plethora of those for us to go through today. The first of which was Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. I gave this a 4.75 out of 5 stars. This book follows our main character, Ellery, who is a teenager living in the society where people worship some of the old gods. And the town that he lives in has been in a winter for several years. And people think that it is the gods' fault that they are in this never-ending winter. And so they are sacrificing the little that they do have to try to appease the gods. And Ellery's family is definitely one of those families who are trying to do that. Ellery is definitely not happy about that. They do not believe in gods. They don't believe that the gods are real. So they think that everything that their parents are putting towards this is a waste. And so they move into town with their cousin and their cousin's girlfriend to get a job to try to help send money back to their parents and like help the farm. Our other main character is Nox, who is a familiar who has been trapped in the human realm for years. They were in service to a powerful witch. He was supposed to go back to the other world, the other realm, Otherworldly, but he doesn't want to go because he knows that when he goes back to the other world, he will forget his memories, and he doesn't want to forget what he's learned about our world. So these two characters meet, of course, and obviously because Nox is from another world, Ellery realizes that actually gods are real, and the two of them have to work together to save Ellery's hometown. Next we have Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This one follows our main character who has 2 brothers that are both older than her, I believe, or one is like really close in age and one is older. She has to go back to her hometown because her father has died and it's for his funeral, and she finds out that her dad left her everything and left her brothers basically nothing. And this is really weird for them because she actually is not their sister. She was the daughter of a girlfriend of their dad's who up and left her there like 10, 15 years prior. And so they just kind of took her in. So for their father to leave her everything seemed kind of weird. They go through this thing where they are going through the house and she starts to find things that seem very suspicious. She thinks there are people in the house that are watching her while she's there. There are things going on in the lake behind the house, and a lot of weird things start happening. I really enjoyed this book. I think that it was definitely surprising, some of the things that happened, and when you find out, you know, what actually happened in the past with her mom and all of that stuff was all very interesting. Very much enjoyed. We read this kind of like as a group read for the B&K book club. I definitely read it before everyone else did because I started it and then couldn't put it down. So be that as it may. Next we have Murder Road by Simone St. James. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is the Illumicrate Afterlight edition. Evernight. I always say Afternight. I think Afterlight is the romance ones. These are the Evernight versions. I mean, it's a gorgeous cover, honestly. This is April and Eddie have taken a wrong turn, and now they're on a long, dark road late at night. When they see a woman up ahead, clearly in trouble, they stop and pick her up. It's only once that she's in the car that they see the blood and the headlights appear in the distance, racing towards them at speed. And at long last, the woman speaks. He's coming. I'm sorry. April and Eddie are able to escape this time. Their terrifying adventure is only just beginning. The hitchhiker's injuries prove fatal, and the couple are trapped in the small town of Cold Lake Falls, prime suspects in the eyes of the local police. So basically, they are driving down the road. They pick up this hitchhiker. They find out that she's actually bleeding to death in the backseat of their car. They take her to the hospital, and the hospital call the police, and they're like, hey, this has happened a lot of times before on this road. And somehow this married couple who have never been in this town before become the prime suspects because they are the ones who drove the body to the area, to the hospital. And so this book follows them like trying to figure out who the killer of this murder road actually is, and the couple like trying to figure out things about themselves because they are a newlywed couple. And I really enjoyed this. I know a lot of people really didn't, and for some reason this just really worked for me. I guess I never realized that the actual hardcover of the book is a map of Cold Lake Falls. I 100% missed that. But yeah, this is definitely not my first Simone St. James that I have read that I think I liked it and everyone else didn't. So what I'm going to say is that if you've liked her other works, you will probably like this one. If you haven't liked her other works, you probably won't like this one. I've only read 2 or 3, so I couldn't tell you, but I did enjoy it. So that adds 3 to our 2024 new releases, which brings us to 12. The next is library books. I'm supposed to read 12 library books this year. The first of which that I read this month was Moon Called by Patricia Briggs, and I rated that at a 3.75 out of 5 stars. That is the Mercy Thompson werewolf series. That was another one that was recommended to me when I was like, give me things that are like this thing. That was how I got the Chicagoland Vampires. That's how I picked up Magic Bites. That's how I picked up Moon Called. Moon Called follows a main character who is a skinwalker, so she can shift into a coyote. Again, I've watched so many things and read so many things with shifters lately. I don't remember. But anywho, most shifters in this world are werewolves, but she is a different type of shifter. She is more of the indigenous people's form of a shifter, and I think it's a coyote. She lives next door to a werewolf alpha. She grew up with a pack of werewolves because her mother didn't really know what to do with her because her father had died early on after she was born, or maybe even before she was born. So her mother knew someone who was a werewolf, and basically the werewolf pack raised her. So she's very familiar with the ins and outs of pack society. And this book follows her as an adult. She finds a young werewolf who is in her area who does not belong to a pack. And she takes him to the alpha who lives next door to her, who she has like they kind of have like a love-hate relationship. She likes to torture him, basically. is where I'm going with that. But he likes her and trusts her enough to let her spend time with his daughter, who likes to like go to her house and cook and things like that. So, but she takes this kid werewolf to the alpha's house, and the next morning she wakes up and that kid is found dead on her porch, and the alpha's daughter is missing. And so the book is like her trying to figure out, you know, what is happening, why someone would have killed this young wolf, who took the alpha's daughter. All of these things ensued. I really enjoyed it. Again, a 3.75 doesn't sound like a lot of, like, these books are not literary masterpieces, but they're fun. And so like 3.75, again, not a bad rating. And even the Chicagoland Vampires at 3.25, not a bad rating. It's above average. Mostly they're just fun. Like they're not the best written things ever. They definitely have some issues, but I had a great time. So Moon Called, and then also Magic Bites was from the library as well. So that is 2 library books, which makes us at 5 overall. The next square is my physical backlist TBR. I did not read any in the month of May. The next is book club books. As I mentioned before, Daughter of Mine was a book club book. Also a book club book was Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This was a reread for me. I did rate this time out of 4.5 out of 5 stars. I had never rated this previously because I read it like in high school, but I just know that it was like one of my favorites, which is funny because in the forward of the this is my original one that has that really old book smell that I love. But in the anniversary edition that we read from the bookstore, this was my indie bookstore's book club pick for May. Anywho, in the forward in the edition that we were reading for the bookstore, it talks about how this shouldn't be your favorite book because it's, you know, obviously got problems. If somehow you've made it to this year, the year of our Lord 2024, and you don't know what this book is about, it follows a firefighter named Guy Montag. But in this society, firefighters don't stop fires, they start them, and specifically they burn books. This society has outlawed books of any kind, and so he is a firefighter who then starts to question why it is that people will do things like hide these books in their house at risk of their own life and everything that they own. Like, what is it about books that make them want to do that? And so he starts to question it, and it's just a fantastic story. I loved our discussion of this at book club. It was a great discussion. Yeah, this is my original copy. I love this book. So our other book club book was Assassin's Blade. I just hit myself in the face with it, by Sarah J. Maas. This is the book of prequel novellas to Throne of Glass. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. There is a full discussion video for this on Bethany's channel, which I will link down below. If you have been following along, or if you haven't been following along, we are reading these for the Mass Effect read-along this year. We are on book 4 right now, which is Heir of Fire, which is book 3. We're on the 4th book for the Readathon, but book 3 of the series, Heir of Fire, for June, which I haven't read yet, and it's June 22nd, so I'm screwed. Anyway, I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I am the only one out of these 6 hosts who have not read this series past book 2. So this was all new material for me. I will say that I did enjoy most of the stories, but I also found some of it to be a little lacking. And I also found the last story in particular to really change my view of the first book. And of in the first book we learn about Selena's previous relationship with Sam, and like what that has done for her, like how that affected her losing that relationship with Sam and her losing Sam, and how much that colored the person that she is that we meet in that first book. Anywho, I got cut off there because the timer ended on the sprint that we were on, and now I don't know what we were talking about. But anywho, yes, this book gave us a look into the relationship between Selena and Sam, and it made me change a lot of my opinions about Selena and Sam. So it definitely colored my view of that relationship in a different way than I had expected it to. So Anyway, that's where we are with that. So we got to add 3 books to book club books, which brings us to 12. The next box is rereads, and I had one reread this month, and it was Fahrenheit 451, as we just discussed. Do I have 2 copies of it? Yes. I just figured I would stack the second copy in here for funds. You already know about this one. So that brings our total of rereads for the year to 6 out of 10. Our next square is big books, or books over 500 pages. I did not have any of those for this month. So that is still sitting at 2 out of 10 for the year, which means I'll have to read some chunkers coming up. And our last square and our last book to talk about was finished series, and I read Empty Smiles by Catherine Arden. I gave this a 3.25 out of 5 stars. This is probably my least favorite of the series. I don't feel like this was series ending. I don't feel like this had any depth or growth, or, well, I will say it did have growth, because my biggest complaint about this entire series is that the kids are not telling the parents anything, and they do eventually tell the parents the things during this book. So I do appreciate that fact. But it was just one of those times where everything is over so quickly, and the bad guy, you don't necessarily feel bad for him, but you kind of learn that, you know, maybe he's not all bad, but then there are things that kind of are all bad, and maybe that's not him. It's kind of a weird way, and I don't know that kids are going to understand the way that this kind of worked. And it was fine. It was fine. Now this is where we look at something where, like, this was a 3.25 and I'm telling you it was fine. Whereas the first Chicagoland Vampires book was a 3.25 and I had a really good time reading it. And that is the difference between, like, the way a story is structured versus enjoyment. And that's why ratings are subjective. I liked this series overall. I think it is a good one. It's just not my favorite mid-grade spooky. I definitely still have some questions about it, and I think everything kind of ended too easily, too quickly. I think there could have been more of, like, a final battle, and that was my gripe with all of the books in this series. So adding that to my finished series square, I wanted to have 10 finished series by the end of the year, and we are currently at 7. That is our bingo board for the end of May. I think I'm doing a pretty good job of getting through everything. We should be at 12 books by 12 friends, 5 times under 60, 12 of the 24 new releases for 2024, 5 library books, 16 physical backlist books, 12 book club books, which actually gets us to our goal for the year, 6 rereads, 2 big books, and 7 finished series. We've finished our 12 book club books. Okay, so here is where you guys get to come in. Do we want to come up with another thing to put in that square for the second half of the year? Or should we just go for it again and see if we can get 12 again? Which might be what I do, to see if we can get to 12 again, and then next year, based off of how many times we are able to get to 12, or by how many we get to at the end of the year, that could make me change my number for the next year. I don't know, what do you guys think? All of my Goodreads reviews for these books will be linked down below if you want to know more of my full thoughts on what I have read. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a pizza emoji down below. Surely there's a pizza emoji. If there's not, food of any sort. Leave me a pizza and or food emoji down below. If you want to talk about any of these books that we talked about today, that's what the comment section is for. Definitely happy to discuss them with you. The link for the Mass Effect read-along is always linked down below. It is directly below my upcoming live streams section. I think that's it. I think that's all I have for today. If you don't want to miss anything I have going on in the future here in the library, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Bye!